And we're right back here live in the studio of WLCN. The program is Viewpoint, and our guest has come crashing through and over the railroad tracks, bouncy, and we appreciate John's emergency trip to get here on time. Mrs. Busby, why don't you introduce our... this guy is such a treasure for Logan County, and he's known all over, but go ahead and introduce him.
Well, he's known all over because they send him all over.
Yeah. Three counties.
His fame is spreading.
3 counties.
John, thank you so much for coming out at the last minute. I know where the glitch happened, and it's my fault. And it's good to see you. And what does it look like for the farm people? We sure got some nice snow, and we sure got some rain. Everybody prayed for it. Now they're complaining, and I say, don't do that. You'll confuse God. Everybody's been asking for this.
Well, calendar-wise, we're a month behind where we'd like to be, but temperature-wise and stuff, we're pretty much on track. You know, the old adage of the oak leaves being the size of the squirrels here to plant corn and so forth. We finally arrived there. So
no kidding. I've never heard that, Eddie.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised at that one, Bill.
Is that an extension
Long as I've been
service?
around.
Yeah, that's not in the official extension agronomy handbook. But the soil temperatures have remained cool. They finally topped the 50-degree point for a minimum, last week early. So, we're just getting to the point where things will happen, and it's happened before. And the nice thing is the season gets a little bit later. The weather forecast for the next couple days doesn't sound very good, but after that sounds like an extended good streak, and there's a lot of capacity to put the crop in the ground quickly, and when you do it and the soil temperatures are warmer and everything pops up quickly, and nice even stands and all that. So once again, the farmers are all eternal optimists, or they wouldn't scatter a few seeds to the elements and hope they get a return on it,
Right.
But there's still a good possibility. As a matter of fact, last year some of the better corn was the late planted stuff for one reason or another, because it benefited from some of those fall rains and got beyond the hot, dry pollination time and some of that. So you don't know. Your crystal ball is a rear view mirror. That's the best one,
You mentioned something, 2 words, planting abilities. The capability of planting is significantly greater than it was in the older years when.
Sure.
So they can get that crop in the ground reasonably fast.
Yes, 2 weeks of good hard running will put most of the crop in the ground.
Yeah.
Corn and soybeans,
That's interesting.
That's not true for everyone, but for the most part, that's true.
Is it looking pretty good for the state north and south of here as well?
We're pretty much the same all over, and might even be a little bit better here. They've had more flooding up north, even some scattered snows later than the one we had. And I got a brother-in-law who farms up by Marshfield, Wisconsin, and they had snow again over the weekend, and so... but southern Illinois has been extremely wet, and down there's no tile drainage, south of the Shelbyville moraine, so it's all surface drainage, so it takes a long time to evaporate and so forth. So,
John, worst case scenario, what would be the latest that you could plant corn?
We've discussed this several years since I've been in Extension. We'll be into the June period sometimes talking about planting and replanting corn, and some years it works very well, others it doesn't. But our absolute cutoff is somewhere around the 20th of June.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's a long way off.
That's a long way off. And the old adage was, you lose about 1 to 2% per day after about the 7th of May. But like I said, the conditions have been such that we haven't accumulated heat units and so forth. So we're greatly behind where we were last year, of course.
Well, not to problem. I promise you, it'll be hotter than Hades Pump before too long.
Well, I'm guaranteeing 3 fair weeks will be rather warm.
Of course.
You realize that?
Yeah.
By the way, John does have 3 fair weeks, not just a Logan County fair like
Yeah.
he used to.
Yeah.
John, once again, we've gone over this on the air before, but describe your responsibilities, your territorial responsibilities. You're in charge
Well,
of 3
we
counties.
actually have 3 counties merged into a unit. There's 27 units of extension offices in the state. The only single county one is Cook County. There's 1 county, or 2 counties make 1 other unit. Kind of the reorganization requirements were 3 counties, but 2 of them got blocked by Wisconsin and other alignments, I guess. So there's 1 with 1 with 2, and then they range from 3 to 6 counties put together statewide. So I'm the county
The
director
6
of
would be where?
Southern Illinois.
Yeah. Right.
You're the county director for...
Logan, Menard, and Sangamon. The neighbors to our east are DeWitt, Macon, and Payette counties. There are 3. And then to our northwest, you have Fulton, Mason, Tazewell, Peoria together. So it's a statewide thing, part of the extension reorganization, I guess, to better utilize some of the educators in multiple counties. And, it's all due to budget constraints from federal, state, and local. Everybody's feeling the pinch, as Bill mentioned earlier, I believe, about some of the dollars being scarce and for some purposes. And so that's what has happened. And, the number of specialists on campuses severely eroded. We're down to about 17 equivalents when you add up the part-time folks. At one time, we were 45 specialists.
Really?
Yeah. So it's hard to do research and programming without that support of the research and program development stuff on campus. So along with that, there's been changes in the field, not only in the number of folks, but also the areas that are focused on, and that's kind of the thing we have to do now, is focus on certain areas to make the most impact, I guess.
These new realignment of responsibilities, excuse me, please, kind of made you a Willie Nelson again, on the road again. You're traveling quite...
I was wondering where you were going with that.
You're traveling a lot more.
Sure. Everybody is. It's kind of, we went to the center concept where most of the educators were in the extension centers and covered from 6 to 12 counties before, and they were kind of hired guns that went out and did programming. Now we have our smaller scale hired guns, I guess, because all the educators as well as the county directors cover the entire unit, and then there's usually support staff in those local counties that deal pretty much with one county, but it depends on where you are and how things are set up.
To what do you attribute the drop in the number of graduating experts, as it were?
Well, I don't know if there's a drop in the number of experts graduating, but there's a drop in the amount of funding to hire them.
Is that the deal?
Yeah. And not only that, there's a lot of competition, as there's been for a long time, between the private sector hiring, for example, agronomy candidates, or crop science now, from the University of Illinois. But the private sector pays a lot more than public sector.
That's what we've done. We've taken one word agronomy, made it into 2 words crop science.
And it
I
depends
get all
on
choked up with the thought of that. I get all emotional.
depends on where you're at. Yeah.
John, what Mr. and Mrs. Public don't realize when they go into the IGA store and look at the commodities on sale there, or whatever it may be, is how much it costs to put a crop into the ground. I'm reminded of that this morning. I just happened to catch a glimpse of the lowly cranberry. Whoever thinks of cranberries as being a product, but I mean a big crop. But there are cranberry farmers who are experiencing some problems because apparently Canada had a huge crop of cranberries, and it's kind of affected the price here. They talked about how much it cost to put the cranberry crop in the bogs. And the same analogy applies. It costs the farmer X number of dollars to put a corn crop in per acre.
And when you start looking at things, you're looking at probably $100 an acre for nitrogen is a rough number. You're looking at $100+ an acre for seed corn. We used to think soybeans were cheap to plant, but now you're looking at $60 to $75 an acre for soybean seed, and the rents have gone up astronomically for cash rents and equipment, you know. A lot of the large, well, not even necessarily large by definitions today, farmers, the small community banks can't finance their operating expenses because it's not uncommon to have well over $1 million sitting in a machine shed with seed, herbicides, and that kind of thing, you know. So it's pretty huge numbers, and it's a high volume, low return type of business, and it's the only one I know of where everybody else says what you pay for your inputs and also what you're going to get for your product when you produce it. Most factories get to set their price for widgets when they sell them, but the farmers' prices are pretty much set on the Board of Trade and the end users like ADM in our area.
Yeah, a good friend of mine that you know very well, the Derby party was on last Saturday, and we couldn't go to the party. And says when I dropped Mrs. Gossett off for the party, and he and I went on up to the Lincoln College normal commencement, and lady said, asked him if he was going to bet, and he says I'm a farmer, I already gamble enough, which is about as truth as it can be.
Yeah, the only thing worse than crop farming would be cattle feeding, I think. And that's addictive as well.
Well, and that's the same scenario, isn't it? In that you don't say, I'll sell this to you for this much. They say, you sell this to me, this is what you get.
And that's where some of these small farms, locally grown things have come from, is basically the producers, at least on a limited basis, saying, you know, I'm going to retail my product to my neighbors and community residents, and that way I kind of get to establish my price, and they know who produced it, how it was produced, and that kind of thing. So that's been one of the big things, is locally grown foods.
What about these hog farms, these mega farms that were just growing like topsy for a while? There aren't a lot of new ones in the last couple of years, are there?
Well, it doesn't take too many, I guess, you know. And if you look at the number of livestock produced, the numbers have remained fairly constant because there's the same demand. You know, the same people are still going to the grocery store, but it's hard for a small producer to make the investment, I guess, to make that work, as well as the time commitment. The labor force is lacking. They're willing to do menial jobs, you know. Scooping manure isn't high on people's lists, you know, of things they want to do as a career. And that's a big thing with the migrant or immigrant labor, you know. There's been some very good articles, and I've got family members in the dairy business, and they cannot hire local people to do those jobs.
Just as basic as that.
Just as basic as that, you know, and so they're tickled to hire people who are willing to do it and excited about it.
And that's no different from out west, the huge gardens that they have, the produce gardens. Not everybody wants to go out there and pick the tomatoes or what have you.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've got a cousin on my wife's side, and he's out in California. His business is actually going in and planting gardens for people in California, and he harvests their produce out of their garden and delivers in a basket to the door.
Well, my goodness.
Really?
But it's locally grown, you know, and they are thrilled to have their own stuff, even though they may have seen it out the window.
Oh, dear.
So, yeah, it's all about perspective, I
That
guess.
carries a yard man to a whole new
Yes, it does.
height, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
You know, we talk about this migrant labor problem, and it is, but as you point out, and it's been going on for years, in the southwestern areas and out at the far west, they wouldn't get crops in and out without migrant labor.
No,
Simple as that.
it's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got up in the Chicago area, they were a big mushroom producing area, you know, 30-some years ago, and it was almost all migrant labor force, but you know, the old mushroom production thing, keep you in the dark and nurture you on manure, you know.
Yeah, you're
They're
up to your
basically
knees in
in
manure.
grain bins with high humidity, high temperatures growing mushrooms, and none of the local kids wanted to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't matter what they paid them, you know.
Right.
Week was an eternity, and they never showed back up for week 2, so
Yeah.
they found people who were willing to do it.
To do that,
I can kind of
exactly.
relate to that, you know, working all day up to your knees in the manure. It's hot, sweaty and hot. That's not a job I would aspire to have.
Well, especially when it's not yours.
Yeah, right.
I
yeah.
mean, your enterprise,
Yeah,
you know.
right,
It's one thing if you're trying to do it, but working for somebody
John,
else.
We've had a lot of folks, younger folks here in the county, that when they drive around the county, they see no livestock at all because that's the way the trend has been. Do we have, how many, well, do we have a few or several livestock in the county yet, livestock producers?
Sure. As you mentioned with the hog farms, I don't know where the number mega comes in, but they're large, particularly for hogs, or they're very small, and that's been the trend in farm numbers. Somebody from one of the papers contacted me and said, well, we think the population in the area is decreasing because of the number of farmers, and I said, you know, it's been that trend. The population is decreasing in the Midwest because of lack of professional jobs overall. As manufacturing has left, it's hard to find wage earner jobs, you know, anywhere. So the metro areas that are attracting the young talent are where the jobs are, whether it's Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Chicago metro, the Houston, Austin, San Antonio areas, you know, and Phoenix. That's where businesses have located, that's where the jobs are, so that's where the young talent is going. And
Sure.
Logan County's exported a lot of very excellent talent.
That's right.
Yes, yes,
That's
we
for
do.
sure. Can we kind of move to the townies as opposed to the country people? Are you getting lots of calls from people in town about their yards and gardens and my trees have moss on them from all this wetness, and I lost 2 evergreens to the drought last year, and I'm not the only one.
Oh, no.
But boy, my lilacs are pretty, John.
Yeah.
And evergreens on the whole have taken it on the chin, but yeah, we're getting more calls. When you look at the list of evergreens, there's not many that are acclimated to Illinois weather.
Oh,
Pick one, and white pines are northern understory trees, so that means they don't like real heavy soil, they don't like direct sunlight. You know, same thing with the spruces. They're Colorado. You know, they grow in rocky soils underneath other trees.
Yeah.
High altitudes. They don't like heat. They don't like humidity. They don't like, you know, those kind of things, and Illinois provides it in abundance. So,
Yes, it does.
and then you get into the diseases, and that's killed a lot of spruces, particularly over the last several years. But you can go down the list. Austrian pines went from one of the most planted evergreens to you don't see them anymore. You know, they get 5 different diseases, and so, you know, 40 years old is an old one.
But you know, if you get down south, like in Georgia, Mississippi, the whole roadsides are just all evergreens, and that surely gets hot in the summer.
But they don't want them to live all that long. They make them grow rapidly, and they harvest them for the pulp for the paper mills.
Oh.
You know, so it's a different thing. They don't want it to be on the corner of your street junction, you know, for 60 years. They want 20 years and done.
Okay.
So.
Different motivations.
What would be, in your estimation, John, what would be the most popular tree that people might go out to, if they're just going to go to a nursery somewhere and buy a tree? What would be?
It would be one of the red maples or the Fremont maples.
Yeah.
The Fremonties are a cross between a red and a silver maple, and they're very popular also. But basically, we're running into the same thing. We keep repeating history where we overplant one particular thing. We did the pin oaks. We've done sweet gums.
Oh, you don't even mention that word.
Something
please.
becomes popular and everybody wants 4 of them.
Yeah.
So something.
How do you spell sweet gum with just 4 letters? You know, they're very dangerous, too. I mean, people marching along can slip on one of those dudes.
And they're beautiful trees.
They are that.
But most of the popular ones through the last 20, 30 years have all been southern floodplain trees. The sweet gums, the pin oaks, the red maples all fit that category. So they're fairly shallow rooted, they're fairly quick growing. They are technically hardwoods, but yeah, they won't match up with a good white oak or something, but they're not like a silver maple or a sycamore, you know.
Well, it would not do for me to think in terms of planting anything but a very fast-growing tree.
Well, really.
Well,
very fast-growing.
Yeah, and you can look at that several ways, Bill. You're planting for the next generation, you know.
That's what I've been doing.
That's exactly what we both did. We both lost the trees on our boulevard, and they put new ones out there, and I'm sure I'll never see it be mature.
No, not mature, but pretty at least. And, is there one particular phone call that you get about weeds, and so what would be the greatest phone activity call that you get, John?
Well, recently it was the henbit and chickweed that was growing everywhere. We've had a lot more of these winter annuals. They actually germinate usually in like October. And then they sit there very small and unnoticeable till the spring, and they've had that head start of a half growing season, so they really take off, and by this summer, whether you do anything or not, they'll be gone. They've dropped seed for next year. Of course, there's probably enough seed there. If you killed everyone for the next 10 falls, you're still going to have it, just like crabgrass or anything else. But those winter annuals, and that's also been a problem in the farm fields. It's pretty to see that green carpet or that purple mass out in a cornfield from the flowers on the henbit, but that's going to delay getting into those fields. So a lot of the folks have gone to fall spraying in those fields, and that's a possibility for lawns as well, to do a fall treatment in sometime before Thanksgiving, you know, and then you won't have the problem in the fall, in the spring the next year.
Now we're going to come up to the grub season. When should homeowners apply grub control on their lawns?
Well, we used to say about the time of the Logan County Fair, but most of our grubs anymore are Japanese beetle grubs, so they're later, usually 2 to 3 weeks later, so sometime towards the end of August is a good time for grub treatment.
I'm so good at yard and garden work, and I've already killed the grubs that weren't even alive.
Well, you have grubs there in the spring that overwintered, but they're large, they're deep down in the ground, so they're very hard to kill, and they're going to come out they're going to be in a stage where they're not feeding on the lawns. They feed very narrow time frame in the spring. Then they pupate and come out as a beetle. So when does that happen? Well, we have the old June bugs. That's one of the beetles. And you have Japanese beetles, and sometime from May through the end of June usually. The Japanese beetles being about third, fourth week of June.
That's the one that looks like a ladybug?
No, that's an Asian lady beetle. The Japanese beetle are about the size of your fingernail, and they're kind of a iridescent
green.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got.
They love roses,
I've got
apples.
my entomology going.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the clock has come around again, Judith K. It occurs to me that we ought to call Mr. Fulton the Google of Golden County, because that's all you need. You don't need to go to Google. Just call John Fulton. He's a fountain of information.
And if I'm not in, leave a message. I'll get back to you. Or email me. It follows me everywhere.
Yeah, really.
Well, I want to make a point about that as we close. John is a great public servant in his job. He's the go-to guy, and he's very patient with them. And he does follow through and give you some advice. And so we appreciate that. And we appreciate your being with us this morning, John.
Well, glad we made it. Sorry to miss out on the first 15 minutes.
We muddled through. Yeah.
You don't owe the apology.
You know, we always try to close with a quote. And we've heard about a thing of beauty and a joy forever. Well, a garden is a thing of beauty and a job forever.
There you go.
Thank you, John Fulton, for coming with us on Viewpoint this morning. Thank you very much.